Okay, good morning everybody and welcome to today's webinar on Take Control of Your Network and Manage BYOD. My name is Vanessa Cardwell. I'm going to be hosting this morning's webinar. I'm the Marketing Manager here at Network Utilities, and I will be joined today by our Technology Specialist Malcolm Olkoya and also Justin Hendley, Exinda Engineer. So today's webinar will give you an overview and live demo of Exinda, and at the same time help you to explore and address some of the challenges you may now be facing on your network as a result of BYOD. So let's have a quick look through the agenda before we kick off. The webinar will last about 35 minutes, possibly slightly longer, with an opportunity for you to submit questions. So if you do have any questions, please use your question tab at any stage during the presentation and the demo to submit those questions. So we encourage you, while Justin's going through his live demo, to submit any questions that come to mind at that stage, and we'll endeavour to pause and answer those as we go through. We're also going to invite you to contribute to the dialogue today by launching a couple of poll questions, and we'll launch those throughout Malcolm's introductory session, which we'll go into shortly, and then we will close the webinar with a final round of questions. So before we kick off with the presentation, here's a very short bit of background for you on Network Utilities. We are a specialist IT networking and security solution provider. We have a legacy of providing networking and IT security solutions to both enterprise and service provider businesses. Our solutions include core networking and security, network and application optimization, remote and mobile access and security. And we partner closely with Exinda in the visibility and optimization space. In addition, we offer 24/7, 365 support for all our solutions, and we are very pleased that we are now ISO 9001 and 27000 certified. So without further ado, I'd just like to invite Malcolm to join me now to start with the presentation and overview of Exinda.
Morning everyone. So we just wanted to quickly give a bit of background on the importance of having an appliance like Exinda on your network. So this slide here just basically talks about today's networks and how they are under pressure. And on this slide we're just showing some of the reasons why we see network overload. A lot of stuff has exploded in the network traffic, so we have a lot of email traffic, we have a lot of rich content, a lot of video content. We have more and more computing resources required over networks that are spanning different sites and different geographical locations. So typical WAN scenario now can be across continents. So alongside stuff like that, we have things like the explosion in BYOD, so different devices coming onto the network, employees bringing on different types of applications. Essentially, all these things make it difficult for network managers to ensure that their users have a good user experience wherever they are, whether locally, where the data is, or across a WAN connection. And BYOD complicates these things further because it uses up things like your bandwidth, and you're not necessarily able to determine what level of bandwidth is being used up, where applications and data is being accessed from, and sometimes it can make it difficult to fix application issues whenever they arise. So as the slide shows, you have different experiences that can cause some serious problems for network administrators and make it difficult for you to manage your bandwidth and deal with spikes that you might have, and these can cause downtimes at different times. So moving on to the next slide, we just wanted to highlight some of the three main areas and give sort of scenarios that businesses face and how the Exinda product addresses these challenges. So today's organizations obviously face a massive visibility challenge in that they're trying to see what's actually happening on their network. And as I mentioned earlier, with BYOD, we're seeing a massive increase in the size of applications that you can run remotely on different applications, laptops, tablets, smartphones, and so on and so forth. And also where these applications are being fed from, whether it's local data centers or data centers in the cloud, so to speak. So the main pressure here is being able to justify the use of business critical applications as opposed to non-business critical applications, and where the lines blur between those two groups, for example, social media, YouTube and LinkedIn and so on and so forth. So from a visibility perspective, excuse me, we provide a very comprehensive view with the Exinda product, going down to a layer 7 application visibility, with over 3,500 predefined applications already on the box once you get it. These applications can also be customized, so you can add your custom applications as well. And we also integrate with Active Directory, so that means you can integrate with your AD users and groups and use those within policies on the device. So we can go down to seeing exactly what a particular user is doing on your network, what activity they've been performing over a period of time, and what applications and bandwidth they've actually used during a particular period of time. So moving on to the middle control section, once you have visibility of what's going on, you see what users are doing on applications and running, what protocols are being utilized over your network. We can then talk about control, which essentially means providing prioritization to business critical applications. And let's talk a little bit more about this in the demo, but essentially what it means is Exinda can provide some clever ways of managing or prioritizing applications on your network while using things like class of service, quality of service, and so on and so forth. So things like video or VoIP type traffic that's in most cases very critical because you don't want jitter or you don't want calls dropping off. You can prioritize as business critical, or any other applications like CRM or email or whatever, allowing those applications to have the amount of bandwidth that they need to actually provide a good user experience across your network. And bearing in mind this can be a local LAN or network that spans a massive geographical area or WAN network. So once we have this visibility and we can then perform some control of prioritization to allow or disallow the types of applications that we want, we then move on to the third section, which is basically optimizing applications where necessary. So with Exinda, we're able to provide applications across a network from end-to-end Exinda devices by doing some smart things with stuff like compression, caching, quality of service, deduplication, and a few other techniques that allow us to provide that application from one end to the other and provide the user experience that's the same across wherever they're accessing those applications. So that's very important there, because at the end of the day, most networks now just want to provide the same user experience across their network.
Okay, so thank you for going through those. And as Malcolm has just gone through how Exinda manages visibility, I'd like to launch our first poll question. So you should see that coming up on your screen now. If you could take a second to answer that. Do you currently have visibility of the applications being used on your network? So if you could just submit your responses to that. And I can see those coming in now, so thank you for that. I'll just give it a couple more seconds to give everyone a chance to answer that. Okay, that's great. Thank you. So I'm going to launch the results of that first poll, just so you can get a sense of where your peer group are in terms of this question. You'll see there we have a 67% of you, so the majority of you not having that crucial visibility that the Exinda product provides. And obviously the importance of visibility is shown here as well, as 33% of you have taken this into consideration already. So Exinda will be able to support on optimization and control, and the demo we have coming up later will of course go into a bit more detail and give you some more insight on that.
Okay, so just a bit of background again. Let's look at this next slide and talk more about how network traffic has evolved over the last couple of decades or so. As we highlighted in the previous slide, we've seen some changes in the type of traffic and amount of traffic that's traversing the network from different types of rich content, video, media, collaboration applications, VoIP and conferencing, instant messaging, and so on and so forth. In addition, our networks nowadays, like I said, span different geographical sites, so much bigger than, say, maybe 20 years ago. And this slide basically just shows the progression in the last couple of decades. The main question when you look at this slide, however, is how are networks coping with this growth? We see going from 95 to 2015, future forecast. How are networks coping with this growth? Typically, what we find is there's a missing link between what the network can actually cope with and what's required. So this slide shows that with things like hardware shelf life, where you put in a piece of kit and it's probably supposed to last 3 to 5 years or so. You have different capacity, you have different volume of data, and the growth in the type of data that we see all affects what the network can do. And typically what we see is people try and maybe just push more bandwidth or get more bandwidth in order to deal with this missing link. But that doesn't necessarily work, because what happens is the more bandwidth you give, the more people use it. And they're not necessarily using it for what you want them to use it for. So they're not necessarily serving your business critical applications. They might just be consuming all the bandwidth in maybe dealing with social media or using applications that you don't necessarily want to use, maybe peer-to-peer applications. So in this way, we need to look at it from a different way. We need to look more at the context of use, and we need to first gain visibility into the various users, the devices that are on the network, the applications that are being used, and then do smarter things once we have that visibility, with prioritizing and optimizing where required what the applications are doing, and thereby improving the user experience.
Okay, thanks, Malcolm. So at this point, I'd like to just pause to people to give you an opportunity to submit your response to our second poll question. So you should see that coming up on your screen now. So please tell us the biggest issues facing your network today, and you'll see some options on the screen there. Application performance, video collaboration, VoIP, social media, BYOD, and other. So I'm just seeing those responses coming in now. I'll just give that a couple more seconds and get a higher percentage of you guys answering that. Okay. That's brilliant, thank you. Now I'm going to, as I did with the last poll question, launch results of that, so we can get a sense of how we're all sort of dealing with those network challenges. And we'll see there that we have 57% of you with application performance challenges, 43% with BYOD, unsurprisingly, as we're talking about BYOD today. So Exinda will support obviously on helping you to see and manage these network challenges, and we're going to explore that and delve a bit more into a bit more detail on that when we get to Justin's live demo in a second.
Okay, just moving on to a couple of slides. It's quite interesting there that the results to the poll showed application performance and BYOD as one of the main issues, and that's typical of what we would expect, because BYOD has obviously been growing in the last couple of years, and probably one of the things that's application performance brought it to the top is things like cloud adoption. So going for using applications in the cloud, and getting things like Office 365 and so on and so forth. So on this slide here, I just wanted to give a couple of sort of high-level overview of what the Exinda appliance allows you to do. And it allows us to deliver a policy-based optimization architecture, which you see in the demonstration that Justin gives, that essentially allows you to provide a variety of ways to optimize traffic across your network. So starting from the left there, we have typically what you would get what's been around for a while, say from the 90s, where you compress traffic and you provide some quads on the traffic. Now, moving on over the years, we started doing some smarter things with the traffic. So started doing things like optimization, deduplication, caching of content locally on the box, and meaning people don't have to go out to the origin content server to get what they're trying to pull down to their different devices. And then moving on, we started doing even smarter things like dynamic allocation and SLA policies, where you're able to provide adaptive response techniques, which will again talk about during the demo, and just be smarter about the way we architect and we optimize your traffic from wherever you are, locally on the LAN or across your wider area network. What this essentially means is it allows us to build SLA policies for optimization that provide a 360 view of your entire network end to end. So with this unique combination of network visibility and contextual variables, we can determine who the user is, tell you what application that user is running, where they're running the application from, whether it's local sites, regional branch sites, somewhere across the globe, what time of the day they're using the application or where they're coming from, the bandwidth that the application or the user is using, what type of device they're coming from, and the types of protocols that they're using. And all of this can be provided just from one appliance. So having said that, I'd like to move on now to the demonstration by handing over to Justin Headley, who will just run us through the live demo on the box. Just bear with me a second.
Right, thank you very much. So what I'm going to show, I'll take you through a live demonstration through the interface of the Exinda device. So what we're looking at Exinda's demo environment. This is a virtual device. Exinda comes in both flavors, virtual and physical, and there is absolutely no difference between the interfaces that you are seeing, whether it is virtual or physical. When you first log into the device, you get a dashboard and a benefits overview of what's going on your network. So you get the visibility. You can see what application groups are being used. So we can see that inbound web is taking up almost 50% of the bandwidth and in total consuming 21 gig, and outbound 16 gig, and it's interactive applications which are using the most amount of bandwidth there. We can see the link utilization. We can see how much bandwidth in total is being used, and if you are pushing your limits, you can quite easily see at this point what's going on. And the overview is just today. If at any point you want to zero in and have a look more closely at the section, you can drag and drop and you can zoom in to see in more detail and hover over the lines to see what the information is at those points. We've also got visibility of some things that you may not want on your network, such as recreational applications, games, peer-to-peer, instant messaging, and very quickly we can see that there are 12 hosts doing peer-to-peer applications. So it's something that we might want to look at. So that gives you the visibility of the network. Then we want to have a look at the optimization. So how much are we actually reducing the traffic down? Now we're seeing very good reduction rates here, 96% on FTP during the day. That's probably a little more than you'd probably commonly expect. Typical values anywhere up to about 70% reduction depending on the application. And then we see, if we can scroll down, what prioritization, what applications are being prioritized. So we're prioritizing 21% of our applications, so we are actually seeing some savings, and we can see the savings here in time spent for downloading that information over HTTP and FTP. So it gives a very high level overview. The time that you'll spend, most of the time you'll spend within the interface will be in the monitoring, will be within the visibility part of Exinda. And this all comes under the monitoring section. The monitoring section I like to split into two parts. The first part is the real-time protection. And this is showing what's going on your network right at this moment. The refresh rate that we can see here is 30 seconds, but it can be anywhere between 10 and 60 seconds. And this gives us a view of what's happening now. So if somebody rings up and says, oh, I'm having loads of trouble, it's been really slow, we can go in here and we can actually see what is happening at this moment. And this breaks it down, this first view per conversation, so internal, external IP and the application, and the transfer rate you're getting. You can see that the FTP application there is highlighted in yellow. That means that that's actually been compressed. And then the top one there, the view has just changed. And all the data we are seeing at the moment is just canned data going through the virtual device. So it's changing all the time. So the blue one there means that that is actually being cached. So Exinda introduced a new feature a little while ago called edge caching. And that basically caches internet traffic on the device. So if somebody emails around a YouTube clip or receives a YouTube clip, they view it, that video is cached on the device. If they email it around to all their friends, then they will actually then view the cached version, saving you on bandwidth of another 10, 15 people viewing that video. We can also see the real-time applications that are being used, so HTTP and FTP. We can see the hosts that are using this traffic, the traffic. So we can see just at this moment there's only one IP being used. Reduction, we can see in real time again, so there is FTP going across that traffic, and we can see what savings we're getting. And we can also then see application response in real time. So we can see network delays, server delays, total transaction delays. The rest of the menu on the left-hand side is all historical data. Exindas will keep historical data for about 2 years. So we can go back at any one point and see what was going on. If we have a look at the interfaces, this gives us an overview of the bandwidth being used. So if somebody said it was very slow, we can go back at any point, either during the last 5 minutes, or last 12 months, or even the previous year. So we can go back over a year, or you've got a custom level if you want to narrow that down. And again, we can see here, we can see what bandwidth is being used, and we can highlight a section and zoom into it. The network part of this details roughly the same sort of view. However, it will break it down per application. Now we're being a bit slow. This demo environment is hosted in the States and is used all over the world. And there must be a few people just logging into it at the moment and being used. Here we go. No, I clicked on the wrong one there. Networks. How we go on applications? Let's see. My apologies for this. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, as you always expect on live demonstrations. Here we go. So going into the applications. So first of all, we are seeing groups of applications. And as was said before, Exinda has over 3,500 default applications that you can add in here. And what they do is, so then you're not swamped with information, they group those applications together to make it a little bit more manageable. But once you see these, so we can see that web is taking up quite a lot of the resource. We can click and we can drill down at any one point, and we can click on the web link, and what that should do is that should then take us into the individual application that are included in that group. So we can see HTTP, unsurprisingly, is taking the most amount of resource. And again, we can drill down even further into HTTP and see which hosts are actually using HTTP traffic. And again, from there, we can drill down even further. So very quickly, we can go from a very high level, web traffic is using most of the traffic. We can drill down into the individual applications, then the hosts which are using that, and then if we want to go further, we can view the hosts, the applications which are on that host. So we can see that this host is using HTTP and FTP. If you want to have a look at the individual users themselves, rather than just seeing IP addresses of the devices, Exinda has a little application which is installed on a server somewhere on your estate and talks to your domain controller, monitors the logon events that happen on domain controller, and then map username to IP address. So rather than seeing 192.168.1.10, we can see it's Rachel that's on that event. And again, we can drill down at this point and have a look at Rachel and see what applications Rachel is using. She's using HTTP, but we've also got BitTorrent, Facebook, and Gmail on there as well. So these are the applications, not just HTTP and web traffic. We're actually going down to layer 7 and having a look at Facebook and BitTorrent. So that might be a little bit alarming that we're seeing so much BitTorrent coming from her device. So once we've gathered that information, what we want to do is then we want to start and put policies in place and start optimizing that traffic. So these are done by very simple rules, and they work as a firewall-based policy, top-down approach. So as the traffic comes in, it matches one of these policies, applies the settings that you've got, and then goes no further. So you place your more restrictive or your higher priority applications at the top, and there are 4 things that we want to have a look at with each of these rules. First of all, you've got the two percentages: the minimum guaranteed bandwidth and the maximum burst bandwidth. So for peer-to-peer and recreational, we want to keep it low, 1%, 2% minimum guaranteed bandwidth, and only able to use up to 3 and 10%. The third point you want to look at is the priority, 1 being the highest, 10 being the lowest. So if 2 applications want to use burst at the same time and use the bandwidth at the same time, it then goes on priority. And you can see that voice, which is quite critical because you don't want to have a jittery phone call, that's given the highest priority. The fourth bit is we want to have a look at the acceleration, what you're doing to not only optimize but then accelerate that traffic. And we can see that some of these applications are actually then being optimized.
Just quickly, Justin, let me just interrupt you quickly just to answer a question, just to keep it sort of, I guess, a bit interactive. Darren Smith has just asked a quick question on what is the collection method for data inline on NetFlow or a combination of both. The device is placed inline, so between your core switch and whatever your perimeter device, firewall, router device is. So it's an inline deployment, and it is configured on a bridge card with a LAN and a WAN interface. That's a pass-through card, so it will fail open if the device actually dies, loses power, or whatever. I hope that answers your question, Darren. And Justin, you can go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So what we'll do is we'll just jump in to one of the policies, and we'll actually have a look at the components that make up the policy. So you give it a policy name. You've got a schedule that you can apply the policy to. So you might want to be very liberal and say, right, well, people can go on Facebook and YouTube, and Twitter during lunch hours, but during work hours you want to restrict those. So you can have during work hours, lunch, after work hours, etc. What you want to do, whether you want to have the rule enabled, so you might want to build a load of rules up and only apply them one at a time to see what effect they have. And then you can see how you want to filter, what applications you want to actually use here. So you can select different hosts, different directions for the traffic to go in. So you might only want to restrict HTTP up rather than down, FTP up rather than down. You give it a burst percentage, a minimum and a burst, and it can either be a percentage or a kilobytes per second if you wish to actually put a physical limit on it. You select the priority and whether you want to do acceleration. So the acceleration is very simple to enable. You tick a box and you select which one. Edge caching applies to web traffic. Accelerations, so the data caching and compression, which was mentioned before, very simple to enable them. And that's all you have to do. And that's all you do on a policy to set a policy. Within each of the policies are actually contained within a virtual circuit. So you can have different policies set for different traffic going to different locations. So we've got 2 in this example. So traffic going to the branch office, and you can possibly give files more priority because that might be where your file store is, or that might be where you've got your mail service. So you want to give mail priority, mail the priority. And then we've also got another virtual circuit going from internet to all, to and from all, going out to the internet. And again, you then may want to apply different policies there. So that is very simple, how you set up your optimizing and your acceleration policies. Looking at some of the more advanced features, you've got the adaptive response. So here we can put limits on people. So we could say, in this example, the users, if they exceed 250 megabytes a day, we can then put them into another set of policies which then restricts them. So we can put limits on people, very useful for schools or managed services or any sort of people that you think might actually use a lot of data. You can put restrictions on them. You can do it daily, weekly, monthly. You can say what type, inbound, outbound, the amount of megabytes, and where they go, the destination network object. So they will be put into another network object which will be then limited on what they can do. So that's the adaptive response. You've then got the service levels. So within the service levels, we've got some scoring and some information about how applications are behaving. So we can see that HTTP, we set limits on the network and server delays, and we can say, do we want and how long those delays are for. So if it's breaking those limits for more than a minute, do we want to enable alerting? So we can be alerted to if there's any issues, potentially before any customers ring in and say that they've actually got some problems. If you have any service level agreements to say that you will provide a maximum threshold of delay to a certain service, or if you provide that or you get that from your provider, you can start testing for this as well. So we can say if a ping takes longer than 200 milliseconds going to Yahoo or any other service, then you can be alerted to that, and it will log that. Then you can go back and say you are breaking your SLAs, or we are within your SLAs. Look at this. We are doing everything fine. Looking at the applications, and this is where Exinda hold all of their applications. So first of all the individual applications. So not only Acronis, which is using certain ports, but if we then have a look at Adobe Update Layer 7, or if we go, I didn't want here, wanted F, we can actually have a look at Facebook in a second. So Facebook has multiple Layer 7 signatures that it uses. You can delete these, you can edit groups. If we go into the groups, and you can see at the top there where you add new applications. And these groups, this is where you group the applications into a group name. So you can put your own applications in there, you can put your own groups. If you, for example, don't want to have, if you are using terminal services, if you are using Citrix, for example, and you want to give that prioritization, but you then don't want to give the rest of these, you can take Citrix out of this group and then restrict the thin client group, and therefore Citrix won't be restricted, whereas RDP or TeamViewer will be. So all of these are completely configurable, and you can add your own in at the same time. I'll just go back to the applications, and we can see how we add an application in. So you give it a name, you can give it a network object. Is it a layer 7? Is it HTTP? If we can find HTTP a little bit further down. HTTP host is Exinda.com. And so we can build up our own individual signatures there. So that is how you build your policies, how you build your applications. Now we just want to quickly cover reporting. So all the statistics that you see here can be reported on. And what we can do is we can create PDF reports or CSV reports for importing into anything into another system. And you can also then customize these reports with your own logos, so you can then pass them off onto customers or onto management, and it looks nice for them. We all know management likes to see pretty pictures. These can be created on demand. You can create it now if you want, Or what you can do is you can set up an email as well. So these can be emailed once a day to a manager, once a week, to show what's been happening on your network, see what the top traffic is. And we can see that we can report on everything. We can report on all the statistics. We can also report on the usage of the box as well, and the application and the appliance, so we can see the CPU usage, etc. So I think that's about all I want to cover through there to show you. I hope that's been useful for you.
Okay.
And I shall hand back.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed for that demo, Justin and Malcolm, for your presentation. At this stage, before we round off the webinar, I would like to give you all an opportunity to submit any questions. So if you have a question on anything that you've heard or seen in Justin's live demo, then please use the question tab to submit those to us now. So we'll just take a couple of seconds to see if you've got questions for Justin and Malcolm. I can see we've got one here, one for you, I think, Justin. Can the Exinda device optimize across satellite links?
Short answer, yes. It doesn't matter what the physical link is beyond your end device, so your router or your firewall, whether that's on fiber or copper or satellite. Exinda sits on the, shall we say, on the clean side of your network, so we can handle fiber and copper going in. So yes, it can. I did an install on a ship a couple of months ago, and they had satellite link for when they were out and about on the sea. So, and they wanted Exinda because obviously satellite is very expensive. So they wanted to limit the applications. The people who were on the breaks were doing were obviously on downtime, so we're on Facebook and YouTube, etc., and that was taking up vital bandwidth for the scientific equipment which was on the ship. So yes, they put it on there, and that went across the satellite link.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Justin. Let me just see if we've got any more questions coming through. I assume the device supports a range of bandwidth. What are these ranges? And for you, Malcolm.
Yeah, I can take that one. Yes, the device supports a range of bandwidths, and that starts from a minimum of 2 meg to a maximum of 10 gig on the largest appliances. And appliances are basically deal with the bandwidth based on licensing. So you have, for example, a lower end device that can actually support up to 20 meg, starting from 2 meg. So 2 meg up to 20 meg, and then the next one will be, from then up to a maximum, and then going up to the largest appliance, which again will support a range going up to 10 gig.
Okay, great. Thank you, Malcolm. And we'll just take one more before we round off. Our last question. One for you, Justin. Can Exinda do bespoke applications, allow us to add our own applications?
Yes, you can. You can put your own in. So if you are using bespoke applications that use certain ports, you add those in. If you've got multiple applications, you can group those applications together and have a specific group called in-house applications, and put certain priorities onto those. So yes, you can put your own in there as well.
Okay, brilliant. We've just had 4 questions submitted. For you, I think, Malcolm, does the device have multiple interfaces to deal with different networks, I guess, internal?
Yes, so starting depending on the device you get basically a pair of bridge ports. So on the lower end device, I think it starts with 2 pairs. So 4 interfaces essentially: LAN 1, LAN 1, and a management port. And you can connect those as you wish, basically. So if you have different networks, guest, internal, DMZ, or whatever, you can use those cards as you see fit. If you have a wide variety of networks, then obviously we'll need to use bigger devices, which some of them actually are modular devices. So you can insert interface modules, basically, to have multiple bridge cards on there. I guess another thing to mention is we fully support VLANs and VLAN tagging. So sometimes you might just use one interface but have several VLANs that the device can support as well. Yeah, so we support multiple interfaces. I hope that answers that question.
Okay, that's brilliant. And we're going to round off now. Thank you very much, Justin, for the live demo, and to you, Malcolm, for the presentation. And thank you to all for joining us today and for submitting. It's great seeing all those questions coming through, and it was great that you all answered those poll questions, because that was very interesting for us all to see. So if you'd like any further information on anything you've seen here today, please do contact a solutions expert from the NetUtils team on the details we see here. And if you have any questions, then please get in touch. And thanks again for joining us today.